Hello, how many 50 amp RV sites can a 200 amp meter service handle? Assume the last 50 amp space is 260 feet from the meter. I am in West Texas. The RVs are large and everyone usually has 2 air conditioners.
I'll do all I can to help. How long have you been dealing with this?
I have owned the RV park for 4 years now and am convinced the electrical setup is not correct, leading to an exaggerated bill.
How old is the system in question? And have you consulted an electrician yet?
I replaced the load center when I purchased the place 4 years ago. The breakers were falling apart. The previous owner set up 14 spaces and a water well on one 200 amp service, so in the hot summer I am dealing with very hot breakers that trip. I also replace the well pumps yearly, which I have come to believe the damage is due to brownout. I think placing another 200 amp service to share the load will help, but of course I am not an electrician.
Do you plan on doing the work yourself?
I plan on doing the manual labor, which is any trenching. The other thing I think could do is run wire to another 200 amp meter that only has 4 RVs on it.
Anything else we should know to help you best?
I believe the aluminum wire size is incorrect on the outer pedestals. The previous owner just kept adding spaces using regular house outlet wire. I know this is part of my problem. I have a total of 5 200 amp services, meters, for a total of 32 50 amp services plus 4 water wells.
Welcome to www.justanswer.com. Are these services all single phase? If so, the code allows for the following. Each 50A site shall be calculated at not less than 9,600 watts. A demand factor for 4 RV sites is 75%, so 4 by 9,600 equals 38,400 watts at 75%. 38,000 x 0.75 is 28,800 watts. 28,800 divided by 240 watts equals 120 amps. Therefore, not accounting for voltage drop, which has to be accounted for, each 200 amp service had ample capacity for the loads per the code. A voltage drop calculation using the 120 ANP load at 260 feet yields a calculated voltage drop of 4.82 volts or just over 2%, which is well under the recommended maximum of 5%, assuming a 40 aluminum conductors throughout. A reduction in wire size is not allowed. If the wire is smaller or connections are not properly torqued, the voltage drop would be higher. With this load there is ample capacity left for a well or other loads on a 200 amp service. I recommend checking the wire size and the connections. Let me know what you find and if you have any other questions. Thank you.
THKS, so for the 200 amp meter service at Firth's service at 265, with correct wire size, I should be able to safely have 8 50 amp RV services and 1 water well service, correct?
By the book, yes, if you have the proper wire size installed correctly and if the pump is no more than 1.5 horsepower. If the pump is larger you would need one less site.
One last question. The demand factor chart for 8 sites is 55%. Is this based on the 20% sites are 50 amp, 70% of the sites are 30 amp and of course the last 10% reserved by 20 amp setup? Of these 8 sites, I need to assume they all have 50 amp RV in them using 2 AC units in the dead of summer. Is there a demand factor chart based on quantities of certain amperage, or is the demand factor chart percentage correct regardless of 30 and 50 amp mixtures on the same feeder?
The demand factor is regardless of the mixtures. Thank you very much for the excellent rating.
If you have a home improvement or appliance question and want to chat with an expert now, visit justanswer.com/YTHI.